Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I'm going to talk about a man who's quite possibly the best frontman in the history of modern rock, or frankly of modern pop music, because Queen had both success among the rock crowd and on the general pop charts. And Freddie Mercury was someone who, by his own admission, was trying to bring opera to the masses. And that became ever more apparent as the band went from strength to strength. And by the time they had the quintessential album, Night at the Opera, come out, it was pretty apparent what they were trying and succeeding at doing. Now, Freddie Mercury is immediately a very special leader of any band in any style of music because his voice was impeccable. He didn't sing the way a typical rock or pop singer did. He sung in this sort of neo-operatic style, lots of vibrato, lots of dramatic flourishes, very powerful diaphragm, no sort of rock or blues cliches. He was really someone that did something totally different. And I cannot think of any other vocalist who approached that kind of music in that kind of style. You had, of course, prog rock singers that had voices that were very powerful. You had Greg Lake, wonderful voice. David Gilmour, wonderful voice. And Pink Floyd, John Anderson, very high voice, but very good as well. But Freddie was just someone different from everyone, no matter which genre you're comparing him to. And as a writer, both someone who wrote his own stuff and who collaborated with the other great writers in the band, Brian May and even Roger Taylor, John Deacon, he really was able to produce such a wide variety of styles. I mean, Queen could be vaudeville on one track. They could be, torch song, sort of love song, heartbreak song in that typical pop style. The next, they could be sort of neo-operatic on one song, very prog rocky, hard rocky. They could literally do any style because they were a band that was really based around the fact that no matter what style they played in, Freddie's voice was always going to be unique. Brian's guitar sound was always going to be instantly identifiable. The drums of Roger were, I would say, yeah, pretty identifiable too. The whole thing just was a collection of individuals who were larger than life, certainly in the case of Freddie, but who, when they came together, they created something very special. Now, Freddie, towards the end of his life, started doing more solo stuff in the 80s. He did the great operatic song Barcelona, which anticipated the 1992 Olympics, which sadly he didn't live to see. And who knows, if he had lived longer, he would have probably gone further and further into that sort of route, because he was definitely heading in that direction in the final years of his life. But so many of his powerful vocals, I mean, Who Wants to Live Forever starts out with Brian May, then Freddie finishes it. Wonderful, wonderful song. One of the best songs, frankly, of all time. Show Must Go On at the very end. Another very powerful vocal. He was probably, I think, without reservation, the best singer who ever decided to be in a rock band. Because with that kind of voice, he didn't really need to be. He could have gone into a conservatory and refined his voice, if you will, and have become a professional singer in classical music. He could have done a lot. He could have been a pop singer in a very sort of dramatic style. He could have done light opera. He could have been on the Broadway or West End stage, but he decided to take opera to the masses. And it's a format that, if you were to tell a record executive, even in the 70s, when things were more open-minded than they were before or since, you would have been laughed out of the studio. But the band just made everything work. And from the first album to the very end, there was that unique style. And Freddie was obviously, I think, the biggest part of it. I think the other guys in the band probably would have been able to form a successful band, but not at this level. And obviously, there's the famous Live Aid concert. Now, Queen never really fell off. They were always a perfect live band, always had really good studio records, but they were, especially in the US pop charts at that time, the sort of early to mid 80s, they were becoming a bit passe. Um, there was obviously the South Africa scandal, which gave them some bad publicity in the UK. And with all of that going on, they showed that in a music festival where it was all live without a net, they could pull it off. They were a band born for the stadium. They didn't just take opera to the masses, they took opera to the football stadium in a rock and roll form. And again, there's so many great frontmen in music. Some aren't the best vocalists, David Lee Roth, but a great frontman. Some are sort of quintessentially rock. People like Ozzy Osbourne, people like Robert Plant, people like Ian Gillan. Some are more on the bluesy side. Paul Rogers, who later joined Queen, one of the best ever. But in terms of just pure vocal power, no one has ever done it like Freddie Mercury. And based on what's going on in the music industry today, no one ever will. A true, true legend who did more in a short life than many people do in a long road to retirement. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Take care.